My perfect sister demanded I be her surrogate after I secretly won the lottery. I refused, and my family disowned me. Now they're begging for my help after her husband left her for her own sister. I never thought my life would turn into a daytime drama, but here we are. This is a long one, so grab a snack. For as long as I can remember, my older sister, Sarah, has been the golden child. The perfect student, the effortlessly beautiful one, the charming socialite. I, on the other hand, was always the quiet one, the autistic one, or, more often than not, just Sarah's sister. Our parents doted on her, celebrated her every achievement, and gently, or not so gently, pushed me to be more like her. Sarah, to her credit, mostly ate it up, basking in the adoration while occasionally throwing me a bone of sisterly affection, usually when she needed something. Fast forward to adulthood. Sarah married Mark, a seemingly successful man from a wealthy family. They had the picture-perfect wedding, the sprawling house in the suburbs, and the impeccable social circle. I, meanwhile, was plugging away at my graphic design job, living in a modest apartment, and dating casually. No drama, no grand pronouncements, just life. I was content, or so I told myself. The constant comparisons still stung, but I'd learned to live with them. Then, 6 months ago, my life changed in an instant. I won the lottery. Not a small amount, either. A truly life-altering, generational wealth kind of win. I'm talking multimillions. My first instinct was pure elation, followed by a wave of panic. I knew, with absolute certainty, that if my family found out, especially Sarah, it would become a circus. My parents would see it as their golden opportunity to finally fix me, to mold me into someone worthy of Sarah's reflected glory. Sarah would see it as her personal ATM, an endless source of funds for her lavish lifestyle. I knew their nature. I'd seen it played out countless times, albeit on a smaller scale, with any minor success I had. My artwork, for example, would always be nice, but not as sophisticated as Sarah's taste. My promotions at work were always met with "that's good," but Sarah is already a director. This money would amplify everything. So I kept it a secret. I hired a financial advisor, a lawyer, and an accountant, all sworn to secrecy. I diversified my investments, set up trusts, and made a plan. I still went to work, still drove my old car, still lived in my apartment. I made some strategic, quiet moves, paid off my student loans, helped a struggling friend with a medical bill anonymously, set up a small foundation for aspiring artists, but nothing that would raise suspicion within my family. It was exhilarating, terrifying, and liberating all at once. For the first time, I felt truly independent, truly in control of my own destiny, free from the shadow of my sister. The cracks in Sarah's perfect life started appearing a few months after my win. I noticed she was a bit more stressed, a little more irritable. She started making veiled comments about financial struggles, about Mark's company not doing as well as expected, about the rising cost of living. I would offer non-committal sympathetic noises, internally grateful for my secret cushion. Then came the bombshell. Sarah and Mark had been trying to conceive for years, undergoing multiple rounds of IVF, all unsuccessful. It was a source of great sadness for them, and I genuinely felt for her. This was the one area where Sarah wasn't perfect, and it clearly weighed heavily on her. One day, during a family dinner that felt unusually strained, Sarah dropped it. "Mom, Dad, my name," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Mark and I have made a decision. We want to ask, my name, to be our surrogate." The fork I was holding clattered onto my plate. My parents, who had been listening with somber faces, suddenly looked up, their eyes widening with a mixture of hope and something else. Entitlement, perhaps? My mother, ever the orchestrator, immediately chimed in. "Oh, my name. That's such a wonderful idea. You're so healthy, and you've always been so good with children." I had babysat for Sarah once, 7 years ago, for 3 hours. I was stunned. Not only by the request itself, which was a massive ask, but by the sheer audacity of it. They hadn't even discussed it with me beforehand. It was presented as a fait accompli, a natural progression of their plan. I managed to stammer out, "Sarah, I don't know what to say. That's a huge decision." Sarah, with tears welling in her eyes, reached across the table and grabbed my hand. "Please, my name. You're my sister. You're the only one I trust. It would mean the world to us. You know how much we want a family." My parents piled on, of course. My father talked about family duty and the miracle of life. My mother went into a full-blown emotional appeal about Sarah's suffering and how I had the power to make her dreams come true. It felt like an interrogation, a pressure cooker of expectation that I spent the next few days in a fog. I consulted my lawyer, who advised me strongly against it, citing the immense legal and emotional complexities, especially with family involved. My financial advisor also echoed concerns about the emotional toll. But the main reason I didn't want to do it wasn't just the practicalities. It was the principle. My entire life, I had been expected to defer to Sarah, to support her, to live in her shadow. This felt like the ultimate culmination of that expectation, to literally carry her burden, to sacrifice my body, my autonomy, for her perfect life. And all without even a discussion, just an announcement. When I finally told them no, gently but firmly, the reaction was immediate and explosive. Sarah burst into tears, accusing me of being selfish and heartless. "How could you do this to me, your own sister?" she sobbed, burying her face in Mark's chest. Mark, who had been unusually quiet throughout, gave me a look that was a mixture of disappointment and thinly veiled anger. My parents were furious. My mother's voice rose several octaves. "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? Your sister is in pain, and you refuse to help her? What kind of daughter are you?" My father backed her up, saying I was ungrateful and didn't understand the meaning of family. The argument escalated into a full-blown shouting match. I tried to explain my reasons, the physical toll, the emotional commitment, the desire to have my own life, but they weren't listening. They had already decided what my role was, and my refusal was an affront to their carefully constructed narrative of the perfect family. The word selfish was thrown around so many times it lost all meaning. The final blow came from Sarah. "You know," she hissed, her eyes red and swollen, "if you really cared about us, you'd find a way to help. If you had money, you could even pay for another surrogate, but you're just so stingy." That hit a nerve. The secret money, the secret life. It was so close to spilling out, but I held it in. What would that even achieve? It would just fuel their fire, give them another reason to be angry, another perceived slight. So I just stood there, letting their accusations wash over me, feeling utterly alone and misunderstood. That night, my parents called me. My father, in a cold, measured tone, informed me that until I came to my senses and apologized to my sister for my selfishness, I was no longer welcome at family gatherings. My mother, softer but equally firm, said she was disappointed beyond words. It was a de facto disownment. I was out. For a few days, I was devastated. The family I had always known, however imperfect, had completely cut me off. The silence from their end was deafening. But then, a strange thing happened. A sense of peace settled over me. The constant pressure, the endless comparisons, the feeling of being an accessory to Sarah's life, it was all gone. I could finally breathe. I focused on my work, on my friends, on the charitable foundation I was quietly setting up. My secret millions felt even more liberating now, a true shield against their influence. Then, about 2 months ago, the real drama unfolded. My younger sister, Emily, who had always been a bit of a wild card and thankfully lived several states away, called me. Emily and I had always had a complex relationship. She was a few years younger than me, rebellious, and often clashed with Sarah and our parents. We had a bond born of shared experience, of being the other sisters, but we weren't particularly close, especially after she moved away for college and then just stayed away. Her voice was shaky. "You're not going to believe this. My name," she said. "Mark left Sarah. And he left her for me." My jaw practically hit the floor. "What?" I managed. Emily then spilled the entire, sordid tale. Apparently, Mark and Emily had reconnected at a family wedding a few months prior, shortly after I had been disowned. Emily, feeling isolated and resentful of Sarah's constant self-pity over the surrogacy issue, had found a sympathetic ear in Mark. One thing led to another, and they started an affair. A full-blown, passionate, can't live without each other affair. Emily described how Mark had felt stifled by Sarah's constant need for perfection, her demanding nature, and her emotional manipulation, especially around the fertility treatments. He felt like he was living in a gilded cage. Emily, with her free spirit and independent nature, was a breath of fresh air. They had fallen deeply in love, or so she claimed. Sarah discovered them together a month ago, in her own house. The ensuing explosion, as Emily described it, was legendary. Sarah, apparently, went ballistic, screaming, throwing things, and threatening to ruin both their lives. My parents, when they found out, were equally horrified. Not because of the affair itself, but because it shattered their carefully constructed image of Sarah's perfect life. The golden child's husband had run off with the rebellious younger sister. The scandal was too much for them. The immediate fallout was immense. Sarah was, understandably, a wreck. Mark moved in with Emily. My parents, in their typical fashion, chose to side unequivocally with Sarah, viewing Emily as a treacherous homewrecker who had deliberately sabotaged her sister's happiness. They disowned Emily, cutting her off financially and refusing to speak to her. Sarah, meanwhile, had gone into a deep depression, isolating herself, crying constantly, and refusing to eat. Emily, now facing the wrath of her entire family and the very real consequences of her actions, was starting to panic. Mark's family, disgusted by the affair, had also cut him off. They were both essentially pariahs. And then, the true reason for Emily's call became clear. "They're trying to get a hold of you. My name," Emily said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Mom and Dad, and Sarah. They've been calling my friends, asking if they've heard from you. They even showed up at your old apartment building, apparently. They are desperate." "Desperate for what?" I asked, my heart beginning to pound. I had blocked their numbers months ago. "Sarah, she needs money," Emily said. "Mark left her with almost nothing. His family is cutting her off, too. And the house, it's in both their names, but there are huge legal fees involved in the divorce. She's drowning in debt. And Mom and Dad, they're tapped out from all of Sarah's IVF treatments and her lifestyle. They want you to help Sarah." I let out a bitter laugh. They disowned me for not being a surrogate, and now they want me to bail out the perfect sister whose life has imploded because her husband left her for her own sister? The irony is truly delicious. Emily sounded genuinely remorseful. I know. It's messed up. But Sarah is really bad. My name." She's talking about doing something drastic. And Mom and Dad are terrified. They want you to give her money to get back on her feet. To save the family reputation, mostly. I paused, taking a deep breath. The anger, the resentment, it was all still there, bubbling under the surface. But a tiny part of me, the part that still remembered the little sister who sometimes played with me when Sarah was busy, felt a pang of something akin to pity for Emily. She had made a terrible choice, but she was now paying a heavy price. As for Sarah, I felt nothing but a cold indifference. "And what about you, Emily?" I asked. "Are you and Mark doing okay financially?" Emily hesitated. "Well, Mark's family cut him off completely, and he hasn't been working for a while, so we are struggling. We are trying to figure things out. That's actually why I called you, too. I was hoping maybe you could help us out a little, just until we get on our feet. Mark is trying to find a new job, but it's hard when your family basically disowns you. So, not only did my family want me to rescue Sarah, but Emily also wanted a bailout. The audacity was truly breathtaking. It seemed that in their eyes, despite having disowned me, I was still the designated problem solver, the convenient source of aid when their own carefully constructed worlds came crashing down. And all this while my secret millions remained just that, a secret that I ended the call with Emily, telling her I needed time to think. I didn't tell her about my lottery win, and I definitely didn't tell her that my struggling artist facade was a carefully crafted illusion. Part of me wanted to unleash the truth, to watch their faces as they realized what they had lost, how they had cast aside someone who could have truly helped them, but whose help they had forfeited through their own arrogance and cruelty. That I'm sitting here now, staring at my phone, which has been buzzing with block numbers from my parents and Sarah. My financial advisor is shaking his head, reminding me of all the reasons why getting involved with them again would be a terrible idea, emotionally and financially. My lawyer just sighs and says, "Family drama rarely ends well, especially with money involved." But I can't help but feel a strange sense of vindication. For years, I was the overlooked sister, the one who wasn't good enough. Now, they're the ones in crisis, and I'm the one with the power, the one they're begging for help. The tables have turned in the most dramatic way imaginable. The question is, what do I do? Do I help them? Do I finally reveal my secret and watch their world crumble even further? Or do I continue to let them stew in the consequences of their own actions, reveling in the quiet satisfaction of my own freedom and independence? I know what I should do. I know what my head is telling me. But my heart, scarred and bruised from years of being second best, is whispering something else. Something about justice. Something about sweet, sweet revenge.